Imagine a life where you've achieved everything you were told would bring happiness. The successful career, the perfect family, the beautiful home, yet you still feel a profound sense of emptiness. What if the very things we've been conditioned to believe will make us happy are, in fact, the very things preventing us from experiencing true fulfillment? This is the central paradox at the heart of Friedrich Nietzsche's philosophy, a philosophy that does not offer comfort, but rather a brutal path to self-discovery. It posits that becoming who you truly are requires a radical dismantling of conventional morality, akin to sculpting oneself from raw stone, chipping away at everything that is not authentically you, even if it is painful. This isn't a gentle process of self-improvement, but a demanding journey of self-overcoming. We have been conditioned to believe that success is achieved by adhering to societal norms. These norms are the invisible chains that bind us. Many of our beliefs, values, and even desires are not our own. They are imposed upon us by external forces that often have their own agendas. Consider the relentless pressure to pursue a specific career path, irrespective of personal passions or talents. Observe the rigid gender roles that box individuals into predefined molds, stifling their unique expressions. And take note of the pervasive consumer culture, which equates material possessions with success and personal worth. These examples merely scratch the surface of how deeply we are conditioned to fit into a framework not of our own making, and these societal constructs become significant obstacles to discovering our authentic selves, leading us further away from a path of meaning. These are just some of the chains that we must learn to break. Nietzsche lived in a period of unprecedented societal upheaval, a time when the foundations of traditional values were being fiercely questioned, and this environment profoundly shaped his philosophy. His critique of morality was not merely an abstract intellectual exercise. It was a desperate call for an entirely new mode of existence, one where individuals would be freed from the shackles of imposed values. He challenged the very idea that there is a single, right way to live. For him, the most dangerous life was one lived without self-examination and without the courage to question the status quo. His ideas were nothing short of a revolution against the established order. It is this radical approach to life that makes his philosophy still so relevant today, and it is the lens through which we will view the rest of this video. The stakes of ignoring Nietzsche's brutal advice are incredibly high. Failing to question societal norms and to confront the darker aspects of our own selves leads to a life of quiet desperation, a deep-seated resentment, and a profound lack of self-actualization. This is the emptiness that many feel despite their external accomplishments, a sense that something is profoundly wrong, even if they cannot quite put their finger on it. It's a slow, burning discontent that festers beneath a veneer of success, creating a life that feels hollow and unfulfilled. The ramifications of this neglect extend beyond the individual, affecting the collective well-being of society as a whole. A society made up of inauthentic individuals who are merely mirroring what they see around them is incapable of creating genuine growth, change, and progress. It is from this environment that the herd mentality emerges, stifling individuality and promoting conformity. Understanding Nietzsche's philosophy is not just an intellectual pursuit, but a necessary step in changing not only your own life, but potentially the world around you. The understanding of Nietzsche is a pathway to radical self-ownership and self-creation. True freedom and fulfillment do not come from external validation or inherited beliefs, but from a profound inner transformation that we must actively forge. We are not merely passive recipients of life's experiences. We are the sculptors of our own existence. This is the core theme that will thread through the rest of our time together. The ultimate goal is to move beyond mere self-improvement into a state of self-overcoming, where limitations become the foundations of our greatest strengths. It will require us to move beyond what we have been told and to find our own inner compass. It is this inner compass that we must use to navigate our lives if we wish to have any chance of becoming who we truly are. Friedrich Nietzsche was a controversial figure, known for his relentless questioning of conventional wisdom. He challenged almost everything he was presented with, leaving no stone unturned in his search for truth. Born in 1844, his life was marked by intellectual brilliance and physical frailty, giving him an unusual outlook on the world that those around him could not understand. His upbringing in a deeply religious household, coupled with his experiences in a rapidly changing society, fueled his intense critique of traditional values. His philosophy emerged from a place of both suffering and deep insight. While his life was short, his impact on philosophy is undeniable, and he is still considered to be one of the most important philosophers to have ever lived. He remains as someone whose radical perspectives are still able to challenge us today. At the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy lies the concept of self-overcoming, or Überwindung, a radical transformation that goes beyond mere self-improvement. It is a process of transcending limitations and forging a new, more authentic version of oneself. This is not about simply making small adjustments, but about fundamentally changing who we are and what we believe. It is about pushing beyond our current self-imposed boundaries. For example, imagine someone who has always been terrified of public speaking. Through a rigorous process of self-overcoming, they confront that fear, practice relentlessly, and eventually become a captivating and successful speaker. This is more than just overcoming a fear. It is a radical transformation of the self. It is through this challenging work that the real transformation begins to take shape. Nietzsche's philosophy is not just an abstract academic idea. It's a call to action. It demands that we confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and about the world around us. We cannot passively accept the world as it is. We must question everything. This journey requires a deep dive into our own inner world, examining our deepest fears, insecurities, and limitations. It is a path that demands brutal honesty and a willingness to discard those aspects of our personality that are no longer serving us. It is also a path that requires one to accept the responsibility for all of your actions and not blame others for your own current situation. This is the beginning of the journey towards the ultimate goal of self-creation. One of the biggest obstacles to self-overcoming is our own internal resistance. We often cling to our comfort zones, even when those zones are keeping us from reaching our full potential. It is the internal voice that tells you to stay small, to play it safe, and to never take a risk. Consider the fear of failure, which can paralyze us from even trying something new. Or the fear of being judged, which makes us conform to societal norms, even when those norms are going against our true desires. These are some of the many ways our internal resistance tries to keep us stagnant. By becoming aware of these patterns, we can begin to challenge and ultimately overcome them. Without this inner work, we have no chance of being able to start the process of self-overcoming. This is the first wall we must break down. So, let us return to our initial question. If what we have been told is happiness is actually a prison, then what is the source of true happiness, and what is the cost? Perhaps the source of your greatest pain is also your greatest potential. This is one of the many paradoxes of Nietzsche's philosophy, and it is within this tension that we begin to find ourselves. What if the very things that make us different, the things we try to hide, are actually the keys to unlocking our true selves? What would happen if we were to truly confront the darkest parts of our own being? The brutal advice that Nietzsche provides is not easy. It requires intense self-examination and a willingness to change everything. This is not for the faint of heart. It is easy to fall into the trap of self-deception, believing that we are living authentically when we are simply going through the motions. We may think that we have consciously chosen the path we are on, when we have merely accepted the path that others have chosen for us. So many people are living lives that they have not chosen for themselves. They are simply accepting what they have been given, and they are mistaking this for fulfillment. Nietzsche's ideas challenge this notion. He calls for a complete dismantling of our accepted truths and a forging of our own unique path. The path he presents is one that will require us to look deeply into the mirror and see ourselves as we truly are, not as we wish to be. This path, while challenging, is the most direct path towards self-actualization. Over the next several sections, we will not only explore the core concepts of Nietzsche's philosophy, but we will also give you concrete steps on how to apply this brutal advice in your own life. We will examine the challenges that you will face, and together begin on a path that may fundamentally change how you see yourself and how you see the world. However, we must warn you that this path is not easy, and it may require you to completely change your life, your beliefs, and even the people you surround yourself with. Are you ready to begin? At the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy lies the idea of the Übermensch, often mistranslated as Superman, but more accurately understood as the Overman or Behandman. This is not a biological concept, nor is it a symbol of superiority over others, but rather a representation of human potential for self-overcoming. The Übermensch embodies the individual who has transcended conventional morality, creating their own values and living authentically according to them. It is the individual who embraces the will to power, not as a desire to dominate others, but as an inner drive to overcome limitations and create something new. Think of an artist who pushes the boundaries of their medium, driven not by external validation, but by an intrinsic need to express their vision. Or consider an athlete who relentlessly trains not just to win, but to discover the limits of their own capabilities. These examples provide a glimpse into the dynamic force of the will to power, which is the engine that drives us to continually evolve and become more than what we are. What dormant potential lies within you, waiting to be awakened through this very process? Nietzsche's critique of traditional morality is based on his analysis of master and slave morality, a framework he uses to deconstruct the origins of our current systems of good and evil. Master morality, according to Nietzsche, originates from the noble class, those who define good as what is strong, powerful, and life-affirming, and who see bad as weakness or that which is detrimental to their own power. Slave morality, on the other hand, emerges from the oppressed, those who define good as humility, compassion, and selflessness, and bad as the qualities of the masters, such as pride and ambition. Nietzsche argues that much of the morality we currently adhere to is a form of slave morality, a system of values created by those who were resentful of the powerful. This type of morality often leads to a life of self-denial and a focus on the needs of others, which is not aligned with the path of self-overcoming. But if you are not striving for your own greatness, then whose are you living for? These traditional moral systems can become significant barriers to self-development. How often do we suppress our own desires and ambitions to fit into someone else's definition of good? How often do we judge ourselves harshly, adhering to a set of moral ideals that we did not create for ourselves? Consider the pressure to conform to societal expectations of success, where individuals are often valued for their material wealth or social status, rather than their intrinsic qualities. Or, how about the fear of expressing unpopular opinions or going against the norm in fear of social ostracization? These are all examples of how slave morality can stifle our individuality and prevent us from embracing our unique potential. These are the chains that we often bind ourselves with, and they create a prison of our own making. But what if we were able to see these for what they are and finally break free? This pressure to conform often leads to the development of a herd mentality, where individuals follow the crowd without questioning the underlying reasons, driven by a fear of being different and the need for approval. Think of how social media has become an echo chamber of validation, where individuals present carefully curated versions of themselves, seeking affirmation from external sources. This pursuit of external validation not only reinforces conformity, but it also actively prevents the individual from engaging in true self-reflection and self-discovery. This is how we start to lose ourselves in the process. How can one possibly know who they truly are if they have never stopped to consider it in the first place? And if this sounds like you, then what are you going to do about it? The discomfort of questioning conventional morality is immense, as it forces us to confront our own insecurities and the very foundations of our beliefs. This path can be a lonely one, as it requires us to step outside of the comfort zone of the familiar and to question the validity of the collective opinions of the herd. This discomfort may manifest as a fear of isolation or the anxiety of being wrong, and it is often the ego that will use these feelings in order to keep us within the realms of the known. The ego is the part of us that does not want us to change or to grow, and it will often use fear as a tool to keep us safe. It will use all of its tricks to keep us from venturing outside of the comfort zone. How can we ever hope to achieve true freedom if we are in constant fear of what might happen if we step off of the predetermined path? The path towards self-overcoming, as presented by Nietzsche, is far from easy, and it requires a complete and utter commitment to the process of self-assessment. This is what he refers to as his brutal advice, not because it is cruel, but because it demands a relentless honesty with ourselves, confronting the parts of us that we might have tried to hide for years, the parts that we have been taught are bad. This is not a process of self-improvement, but a process of self-excavation, a digging deep into the depths of our being. It requires us to confront our shadow self, our limitations, and our deepest fears. It is a journey into the unknown, where we must be willing to face whatever arises, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. And it is from this place of deep personal discomfort that we find the power to transform. This process might involve confronting long-held beliefs, questioning core values, and even reevaluating significant relationships. Think of the internal turmoil that arises when you begin to question the career path that you have spent years pursuing. Or, how about the distress that occurs when you realize that the people you surround yourself with are not actually supporting your growth? These are uncomfortable realizations, but they are also necessary steps on the path to self-overcoming. These moments are opportunities for us to become aware of the patterns that have shaped us, and to begin to consciously choose which patterns we wish to keep and which patterns we wish to let go. What are you willing to release in order to become who you are truly meant to be? Techniques for self-reflection, such as journaling, meditation, or even spending time alone in nature, can act as powerful tools for uncovering the hidden aspects of the self. Imagine a person who begins to meditate and in the silence discovers a deep-seated fear of not being good enough. This realization can be painful, but it also offers the opportunity for them to explore the origin of that fear and to begin to heal from it. Journaling can also act as an excellent mirror for our thoughts and feelings, allowing us to examine our patterns and to start to see where we might be holding ourselves back. What hidden truths might you uncover if you gave yourself permission to dive deeper into your own mind? The stakes of challenging one's current worldview are incredibly high. It means risking everything that you have known to be true and venturing into an uncertain future. This might mean losing relationships with people who no longer support your growth, or making radical changes in your career or even your personal habits. It is a complete reshaping of one's identity, and it may not be easy to reconcile with your pre-existing views of the world. Embracing this path means letting go of the known and stepping into the unknown. It also means taking full responsibility for yourself and choosing to live a life of your own making rather than a life dictated by others. It is a dangerous path to take, but the rewards are immeasurable. What is your personal freedom worth to you? Self-deception is another significant hurdle on this path, where we convince ourselves that we are making progress, when in fact, we are simply avoiding the discomfort of real change. This can often show itself as playing the victim or blaming others for your own shortcomings, thus failing to accept responsibility for your own life. This might also show up as making excuses or finding justification for staying within the comfort zone. These are all examples of self-deception, and they are all used to prevent us from moving forward. The ego will do everything in its power to keep us in the familiar, using many different techniques that will slowly keep us in the same place, even when we think we are moving. How can we hope to make true progress if we cannot even be honest with ourselves? We often find ourselves in a cycle of self-sabotage, where we give in to negative patterns, even though we are consciously aware that they are hurting us. Think of someone who consistently procrastinates on important tasks, even when they know that it will negatively impact their future. Or the person that continually engages in self-destructive behavior, even while knowing the harm it is causing. These patterns can be incredibly difficult to break, as the ego is deeply attached to them, and it will often use any trick it can to keep us stuck within them. These are all examples of the ways that our inner voices are trying to hold us back. How many opportunities have you missed because you allowed your inner saboteur to take control? How many chances have you missed due to your own self-imposed limitations? The challenge is to recognize these patterns and to see them for what they are: attempts by the ego to maintain the status quo and keep us from the discomfort of real change. The path of least resistance may feel like the correct one, but it is often the path that leads us further away from our true potential. The ego will try to trick us into believing that our current habits are the best path, that the known is safer than the unknown, and it will do anything to stop us from making the necessary changes. But the question is, are you going to let it? Are you going to continue to live a life dictated by fear, or are you going to choose to take the path less traveled? The journey of self-overcoming is not an abstract philosophical exercise, but a deeply personal and often painful process of self-excavation. It requires moving beyond intellectual understanding to actively engage with the hidden aspects of your being. Nietzsche's brutal advice is not about inflicting cruelty on yourself, but rather about cultivating a relentless honesty that allows you to see yourself without any of the typical self-deceptions that often distort our view of ourselves. This is where the real work begins, and it's a process that demands specific tools and actionable techniques to navigate. This journey will challenge you in ways that you have not experienced before, but it is only through this intense challenge that you can hope to achieve real freedom and a life lived on your own terms. Are you prepared to look within and face the things that you have been hiding from yourself for years? Journaling, for example, can be a powerful tool for self-assessment, but not if approached superficially. This is not about writing down your daily tasks or recounting mundane events, but about using the written word to probe the depths of your psyche. This means diving into the areas that might make you uncomfortable, the parts that you might have spent years avoiding. This means asking yourself the difficult questions, the ones that you might not have a ready answer for. Prompts like, "What am I most afraid of?" or "When do I feel most inauthentic?" can help you to uncover repressed feelings and hidden motivations. Meditation, similarly, is not about achieving a state of perfect tranquility, but about using stillness to observe the constant stream of thoughts and emotions that arise without judgment. It's in the silent space between thoughts where the truth of your inner world starts to become clear. What inner truths might be revealed to you if you were willing to face them without fear? Active imagination, a technique popularized by Carl Jung, can also be an invaluable method of engaging with the unconscious. This involves deliberately entering a state of reverie, where you allow images and symbols to arise spontaneously from the depths of your mind. You then interact with these images as if they were real figures, allowing them to express themselves freely. This is not a passive process, but an active dialogue between the conscious and unconscious realms. By engaging with your dreams and fantasies, you can gain profound insights into your hidden desires, fears, and unmet needs. It is a process of making the unconscious conscious, and it can be incredibly revealing. When have you ever truly allowed yourself to listen to the voices from within? However, the path of self-confrontation is rarely smooth. The ego, that part of our psyche that wants to maintain the status quo, will use all its tricks to prevent you from delving too deeply. Self-deception, often disguised as self-awareness, is one of the most insidious forms of resistance. You might start rationalizing your inaction, blaming external factors for your shortcomings, or focusing on minor successes to avoid looking at larger failures. This might mean convincing yourself that you are happy with your career, even though you are feeling unfulfilled. Or it could manifest as telling yourself that your relationships are healthy, even though you know that you are constantly feeling drained. These are all ways that the ego attempts to keep you within your comfort zone and away from the necessary discomfort that is needed for growth. Have you ever noticed how good you are at convincing yourself of the things that you wish to believe? The process of self-assessment often brings to the surface intense emotions, such as shame, guilt, and anger. These feelings are not signs of failure, but rather indicators that you are challenging deeply ingrained patterns and beliefs. These feelings can be incredibly uncomfortable, and it is often tempting to suppress them or to distract yourself from them. But it is essential to understand that these feelings are actually signals of transformation. They are the internal alarms that are letting you know that you are making progress and that you are venturing outside of the safety of your comfort zone. Instead of running from them, you must acknowledge them and learn to work with them. This process is not about avoiding discomfort, but about learning to tolerate it and to use it as fuel for growth. Are you willing to engage with the unpleasant emotions that might arise as you take on this difficult task? The ego will often use procrastination, distraction, and self-sabotaging behaviors to keep you from doing the necessary work. It might convince you that you're too tired, too busy, or too overwhelmed to engage in self-reflection. Or it might tempt you to engage in behaviors that take you away from the path that you are currently on. You might find yourself scrolling through social media for hours, or engaging in other forms of distraction, all in an attempt to avoid the discomfort of looking inward. The more intense the resistance, the more important the work actually is. This inner resistance is a sign that you are on the right track, and that you are challenging deeply ingrained patterns that need to be changed if you are to achieve true freedom. The ego will use any tool it can to keep you within its grip, but you must remember that you have the power to break free if you so choose. As you begin to confront your inner world, you will also be compelled to examine the values that you have accepted from the world around you, the commonly held ideas about what is good and what is bad. Nietzsche argued that many of these values, particularly those tied to the pursuit of wealth, status, and social acceptance, are detrimental to personal growth and authentic self-expression. Think about the relentless pursuit of material wealth, where individuals accumulate more and more possessions, often at the expense of their own well-being. Consider the quest for social status, where people change their behavior to fit into a particular mold, often at the cost of their own authenticity. Do these pursuits actually lead to lasting happiness or fulfillment, or do they simply lead to a never-ending cycle of wanting more? This pattern of valuing external validation over inner authenticity creates a dependency on the opinions of others, leading to a loss of one's own identity. It's a cycle where you constantly seek approval from external sources, always adjusting yourself to meet their expectations, never truly knowing who you are. You might find yourself changing your opinions to align with those around you, or suppressing your own desires in order to fit in. This constant need for external validation can be incredibly draining, and it prevents you from developing a strong sense of self. How can one ever hope to live a truly authentic life if they are constantly trying to please others? How long are you willing to live for an audience that does not care about you or your goals? Identifying your true desires can be incredibly difficult, given the constant bombardment of external messages that tell us what we should want. From a young age, we are bombarded with messages from our family, from society, and from the media, all telling us how we should live our lives. It is in this environment that we begin to lose our sense of true self, and instead replace it with the desires of others. This is why it is so crucial to embark on the process of deep self-reflection. This introspection will allow you to identify the underlying motives and values that should drive your actions, rather than simply pursuing what society has told you to pursue. It's in these moments of deep honesty that you begin to hear the quiet voice of your true self. What are you truly seeking beyond the superficial desires of the world? Ultimately, the ability to take full responsibility for your life is directly linked to the level of honesty you have with yourself. True freedom comes from owning your choices, both good and bad, and accepting that you are the author of your own destiny. You cannot change that which you are unwilling to acknowledge. By facing your limitations, embracing your shadows, and dismantling old, outdated values, you can begin to build a life based on your own unique desires, your own personal vision, and not simply the vision that others have created for you. And with this acceptance comes the greatest freedom, the freedom to fully be who you are. Are you ready to claim ownership of your life and to take the necessary steps to truly become yourself? The path of self-overcoming is a difficult one, and it requires the kind of courage that most people will never have. It will challenge you to your core, and it will force you to face aspects of yourself that you might have spent your whole life avoiding. However, it is also a path that leads to incredible personal strength and resilience, the kind that cannot be attained by seeking the easy route. The struggle is not a sign of weakness, but an essential part of growth. It's through embracing these challenges that you forge a sense of self that is unshakable. It is through this struggle that you become truly free. Do you have the courage to embark on this journey, knowing that it will not be easy? Are you willing to face the discomfort in order to achieve something truly meaningful? All of the patterns that we've explored thus far, societal norms, internal resistance, self-deception, and the pursuit of false values, all work together to keep us from achieving true freedom and from stepping into our own potential. These forces attempt to control us, to keep us within the confines of the known. The world wants you to stay small, to stay within the confines of the prescribed path. To understand these patterns and to learn how they operate within your own life is the first step towards freedom. By recognizing these patterns, you can begin to actively dismantle them and to create a life based on your own personal values. How will you use this knowledge to break free from the constraints that have been holding you back? This journey is more than just self-improvement. It is about self-creation. It is about actively forging your own identity, values, and path. It means taking full responsibility for the life that you wish to live and not simply accepting the life that has been given to you. This is a process of becoming the artist of your own life, carving out a unique masterpiece that is truly and authentically yours. You are not a blank slate, but a powerful force with the ability to create the world around you. You are in control of your own destiny, and only you can make the decision to begin the process. Are you ready to take hold of the paintbrush and finally start creating your own life? While this process might seem daunting and the road ahead seems steep, it is also important to know that there is an incredible sense of liberation that comes from embracing this path. This freedom is not granted to those who wish to avoid the struggle. This freedom is earned by those who are willing to put in the work and face the discomfort. This is not the end of the journey, but merely the beginning. And in the next section, we will explore the incredible rewards that come from this path of self-overcoming. Are you ready to find out what it is like to be truly free, to become the master of your own life? The path of self-overcoming demands that you embrace a life lived on the edge, a life where you are constantly testing your limits and expanding your capabilities. This is not about reckless abandon, but a calculated commitment to growth, a willingness to step into the arena of discomfort, knowing that it is only through this process that real transformation can occur. This is the core of Nietzsche's concept of living dangerously, a concept that encourages us to seek out challenges, not for the sake of suffering, but because it is in these difficult moments that our true potential is revealed. Consider the mountain climber who does not climb for the summit, but for the challenge and the personal growth that is derived from the struggle. The view from the top is merely a byproduct of the journey. In your own life, what challenges have you intentionally sought out? and what have you learned from them? What is the next great challenge that you will take on in order to push yourself closer to your potential? This active engagement with discomfort is essential, yet it often meets with intense internal resistance, as the ego works to keep you within the confines of the known. This resistance can manifest as procrastination, rationalization, or even self-sabotage, and it is crucial to learn how to recognize these patterns and counter them. When you find yourself making excuses, delaying important tasks, or engaging in self-destructive behaviors, you are likely encountering the resistance of your own ego. The ego will always attempt to keep you in the same place, which, by definition, is not growth. For instance, you might tell yourself that you are too tired to exercise, or too busy to meditate, or that it is simply not the right time to take on that new project. All of these are the ego attempting to keep you in your comfort zone. How will you actively confront these internal resistances and actively push back against the forces that seek to maintain the status quo? The process of self-overcoming requires a fundamental shift in your relationship with discomfort, moving from a position of avoidance to one of acceptance, and eventually even to active welcoming. This does not imply the pursuit of pointless suffering, but rather a recognition that it is in these moments that the most profound personal growth occurs. Like a bodybuilder who uses the resistance of heavy weights to strengthen and grow their muscles, you must learn to use the discomfort in your own life as a means of strengthening your character and expanding your capabilities. It is in these challenging moments that you begin to understand the full depth of your own potential. It is in this struggle that your true self begins to take form. How can you learn to view these challenges, not as obstacles, but as opportunities for transformation? This requires an active engagement with the world and a rejection of passive acceptance of the hand you have been dealt. You cannot sit idly by, waiting for your life to improve. You must be an active participant in your own transformation. This means taking the initiative to seek out challenges that will stretch your abilities and pushing yourself beyond what you believe to be your limitations. For example, you could seek out a new hobby that requires you to learn new skills, or you could start a project that pushes you beyond your current level of expertise, or even enter into a challenging new relationship. The purpose here is to actively engage with the world and to start a path of self-creation. What steps will you take to shift your life from one of passive acceptance to one of active engagement? In addition to confronting the challenges in your environment, you must also turn your attention inward and begin the task of confronting your own shadow self. This is the part of your psyche that contains all of the aspects of yourself that you have disowned, denied, and repressed. It is the dark side of your personality, the parts that you don't like to acknowledge or even believe to be true. These shadow aspects might include anger, jealousy, greed, or any other quality that you consider to be undesirable. The shadow is a collection of the unwanted. It is an amalgamation of all the things that you might be ashamed of. However, it is essential to understand that these aspects are not inherently evil, but simply a part of the whole, and that they cannot be ignored if you wish to live a truly authentic life. For example, if you refuse to admit you have jealousy, you might become overly competitive or even sabotage the success of others, even if you are unaware of it. What parts of your shadow have you been actively ignoring, and how can you start to bring them into the light? Self-deception often prevents individuals from recognizing their shadow aspects, as we actively project these qualities onto others in order to avoid acknowledging them in ourselves. This is a way of displacing the unwanted aspects of ourselves onto the world, which prevents us from growing. For instance, if you have a problem with anger, you might be quick to accuse others of being aggressive, or if you have a tendency towards greed, you may find yourself constantly criticizing others for being materialistic. These projections are a defense mechanism, an attempt to avoid facing the less desirable aspects of ourselves. When you find yourself judging others harshly, especially for traits that cause an intense reaction, it's often a sign that you are confronting something that you have disowned within yourself. How can you stop this pattern and begin to acknowledge that the flaws you see in others may be a reflection of what you refuse to see within yourself? The goal is not to embrace the darkness or to allow it to consume you, but rather to integrate these shadow aspects into your conscious awareness, accepting them as integral parts of the whole. This is the core of what Jung referred to as individuation, the process of becoming a complete and unified self. By acknowledging your shadow, you can begin to understand the full spectrum of your personality, both the light and the dark, the strengths and the weaknesses. It is only through this integration that you can move towards true authenticity. Methods such as journaling, active imagination, and even dream analysis can be powerful tools for exploring your shadow, helping you to uncover the hidden parts of yourself that you have long ignored. What tools will you use to engage with your shadow, and how will you use that to become a more whole version of yourself? This is not a process of self-criticism, but rather a journey of self-compassion, acknowledging that you are not perfect and that you never will be. This is an essential part of the journey, one that allows you to acknowledge the aspects that you might not like without judgment or harshness. It is in this acceptance that you begin to see a true path forward. You need to start treating yourself as if you were a close friend and offer the same level of kindness and understanding that you would offer to them. Instead of berating yourself for your flaws, you must learn to accept them with compassion. For example, instead of saying, "I am such an idiot for making that mistake," you might reframe the thought to, "That was not the outcome that I intended, but it is a learning experience." What phrases of self-compassion can you start using in your daily life, and how will these phrases change the way you speak to yourself? Beyond the personal journey of shadow integration, Nietzsche also challenges us to critically examine the moral frameworks that we have adopted from the world around us. He argues that many of these so-called moral imperatives are not based on any inherent truth, but rather on social conventions and power dynamics, which have no inherent value. This is not an abandonment of ethics or a path to complete lawlessness, but rather an encouragement to question the long-held beliefs that you may have adopted without any real thought, and a way of challenging their underlying assumptions. What if everything you have been taught about what it means to be a good person is not actually in alignment with your own values? How can you reconcile what you have been told with the way that you actually want to be? Dependence on external moral codes can often lead to inauthenticity, as you are conforming to the expectations of others, rather than living in accordance with your own deeply held values. This reliance on external validation, on the opinions of others, prevents you from becoming truly who you are meant to be. Think of the countless individuals who spend their lives trying to meet the expectations of their parents, their partners, or even their society, all while sacrificing their own dreams and desires. The result is a life lived in quiet desperation, with a deep sense of emptiness and unfulfillment. How can you break free of these external pressures and begin to build a moral compass that is guided by your own authentic self? What will you do to free yourself from these external expectations? To begin forging your own moral code, you must embark on a journey of self-discovery, seeking to understand the principles that truly resonate with you. This is a highly personal journey, one that requires introspection, reflection, and a willingness to challenge your own deeply held beliefs. This means carefully evaluating the values that you were taught and consciously deciding which ones you wish to keep and which ones you wish to discard. This is not simply following what feels comfortable, but actively choosing your own path, and that path might require you to actively go against that which you have been taught. For example, you might decide that kindness and compassion are more important than the rigid rules of your religion, or you might decide that personal integrity is more important than the pursuit of financial success. What principles will you use to guide your life, and how will they differ from the values you have previously held? Ultimately, the goal is to live in accordance with this new internally created moral code, aligning your actions with your true values, rather than following the dictates of external authorities. This is the core of authentic living, the practice of living in alignment with your own truth. It is a rejection of the herd mentality, a willingness to stand apart and to chart your own course, even if it is different than the path others have chosen for you. This path is not always easy, and it will often challenge you to your very core, but it is also the only path that leads to true freedom and fulfillment. By choosing your own path, you are also choosing to create your own life. How will you use your new understanding to create a life that is truly your own? As you embrace this process of self-creation, it is vital that you engage in activities that allow you to express your own unique creativity. This is not limited to traditional forms of art, but includes any activity that allows you to engage with the world in a creative way. This could be cooking, writing, coding, building, designing, or anything else that allows you to bring something new into the world. The act of creation, whether it is something beautiful or something functional, is a powerful way to express your individuality and to bring your unique vision to life. It is a way of asserting your place in the world and leaving your own unique mark. What will you create that is uniquely and authentically yours, that will show the world exactly who you are? All of these aspects of the brutal advice, confronting discomfort, integrating the shadow, defining your own morality, and engaging in creative expression, are interconnected parts of a much larger whole. This is not a set of isolated techniques, but a comprehensive framework for self-overcoming, where each element supports and reinforces the others. By facing your discomfort, you become stronger. By integrating your shadow, you become more whole. By defining your own morality, you become more authentic. And by expressing your creativity, you bring your own unique vision to life. This is a complete and holistic process, and each step is essential to the process of becoming the person you are always meant to be. How can you begin to weave these threads together to create a tapestry of self that is truly aligned with your own vision? The journey of self-overcoming is not a sprint, it's a marathon, a lifelong commitment to growth and evolution, a constant process of self-creation and renewal. This is not a destination to be reached, but an ongoing process of discovery where you are constantly striving to become a better version of yourself, and that will take a lifetime of effort. There is no such thing as perfection, and striving for perfection will only result in disappointment. Instead, it is essential to embrace the journey and to celebrate each step, no matter how small. What steps will you take today to ensure that you are on the path of continuous growth? As you continue down this path, you will start to experience the incredible freedom and empowerment that comes from truly embracing your own potential. This is not simply an intellectual understanding, but a deeply felt experience of self-mastery, where you are actively directing the course of your own life. This freedom is something that cannot be given to you, it must be earned, and it is earned by those who are willing to face the discomfort and take the difficult path. In the next section, we will dive deeper into this transformative power, showing you how to harness it and to move forward with an unshakable sense of purpose. Are you ready to discover the incredible freedom that is waiting for you? The profound transformation we've discussed isn't merely a theoretical exercise. It's a call to action, an invitation to live as a philosopher, integrating these powerful concepts into the fabric of your daily existence. To live as a philosopher is not to simply ponder abstract ideas, but to consciously choose how you engage with the world, to infuse every moment with intention and meaning. It is the practice of mindfulness applied to the entirety of your life, and not just reserved for certain meditation moments. This requires a deep commitment to self-awareness, a constant vigilance of your own thoughts and actions, ensuring that they align with the values that you have chosen to live by. For example, rather than rushing through your morning routine, you might approach each task with a sense of purpose, appreciating the simple act of preparing your food or the small miracle of your functioning body. How can you infuse your day-to-day life with philosophical intention and ensure that you are living with consciousness, rather than as a passive observer of your own life? This philosophical integration requires a fundamental shift in your perception of success. The pursuit of external validation, such as wealth, status, or fame, is not only ultimately pointless, but can be actively harmful when it comes at the expense of your authentic self. This is the trap that so many people fall into, a never-ending pursuit of something that can never truly satisfy. You might achieve all the markers of external success, the big house, the fancy car, the high-paying job, and yet find yourself feeling empty inside. The reason for this is that true success comes from within, from living a life that is aligned with your own values, and not the values that others have imposed on you. This is where many people fail. They search for validation in the world, and not within themselves. How will you reevaluate your own concept of success, and begin to value the internal over the external? Living as a philosopher demands an active engagement with the world, a full immersion into each moment, rather than a passive experience where you are simply going through the motions. This means being fully present and mindful in all that you do, from the mundane daily tasks to moments of great joy or sorrow. This is the practice of living with purpose, of engaging with your life in a meaningful way, no matter how small or insignificant the activity may seem. For example, washing your dishes can become an act of meditation if you allow yourself to be present, noticing the warmth of the water, the feeling of the soap, and the physical act of cleaning. It can become a moment of appreciation, rather than just another chore. How can you make the ordinary moments of your life extraordinary by engaging with them mindfully? To truly live as a philosopher, you must view your life as a work of art, an ongoing creation in which you are the sole artist. You have the power to actively shape your existence, to bring your unique vision to life, and this all begins with the choices you make, both big and small. Each decision you make, each action you take, is another stroke of the brush on the canvas of your life. You are not a passive spectator, but an active participant in your own development, constantly refining your skills and working towards a masterpiece of a life. How will you approach the creation of your life? And will you begin to view your choices as creative acts that can move you closer to your authentic self? This path of active self-creation requires a constant questioning of your own beliefs and assumptions, a willingness to challenge the very foundations of your understanding. This is not an easy path, and it can often lead to discomfort as you confront the limitations of your own perspectives. It is far more simple to remain in a state of passive acceptance, to simply follow what you have always believed, but that is the path to stagnation and not growth. The path of self-overcoming is a constant process of introspection, a commitment to challenging your deepest assumptions in order to build a more authentic sense of self. How will you cultivate the courage to challenge your own beliefs and embark on a journey of constant self-discovery? The journey of living as a philosopher is a constant process of active self-creation, and it is now time to create a structure in your life that can actively support this powerful philosophical mindset. To move from a theoretical understanding of these ideas to the practical implementation of them, you will need to create the right environment to facilitate your growth. This brings us to the topic of habits and rituals, the daily practices that can serve as the foundation for the new self you are building. What are some of the habits and rituals you can start to implement in your life to support your journey towards self-creation? Habits and rituals are the building blocks of your new self, the consistent, repeated actions that will actively support the process of self-overcoming. These practices do not need to be complex or time-consuming, but must be consistent and meaningful. Think of them as a form of daily self-care, a way of nurturing your own growth and development. For example, a simple practice of daily journaling can be a powerful way to reflect on your experiences and uncover your hidden patterns, or a regular meditation practice can help you cultivate mindfulness and self-awareness. Even consistent physical exercise can have a significant impact on your mental and emotional well-being. What simple and consistent habits can you introduce into your daily life to support your path of self-creation. As you begin to implement these new habits, you will inevitably encounter internal resistance, the force of your ego attempting to keep you from moving outside of your comfort zone. This will manifest as procrastination, self-doubt, and a multitude of excuses to give up and return to the old patterns that have been holding you back. You might find yourself telling yourself that you don't have enough time, or that you are too tired, or that it simply does not matter, all of which are merely excuses from the ego in an attempt to stop your growth. This is a critical point in your journey, the point at which so many people fail because they cannot push through the initial resistance and give up before they have a chance to truly benefit from these practices. How can you prepare yourself for the internal resistance that you will inevitably face, and how can you learn to push through this discomfort? The key to building these habits lies in consistency rather than intensity. It is far more beneficial to engage in small, consistent practices than in sporadic, intense bursts of effort. It is far more important to do 5 minutes of meditation every single day than it is to do 1 hour of meditation once a week. The goal here is to build a lasting foundation, not just a fleeting experience. Think of it like a seed. You must water it and tend to it daily, even if it seems like it is not growing at all. Over time, the cumulative effort will bear fruit. Do not be discouraged if progress seems slow. As long as you remain consistent, you will see the transformation you desire. What consistent, smaller efforts can you implement into your life to build a lasting foundation of self-overcoming? Self-discipline is not about punishing yourself, it is about empowering yourself. It is not about deprivation, but about freedom, the ability to consciously choose your actions, rather than being driven by unconscious impulses. The ability to engage in regular routines, even when you do not feel like it, is a demonstration of your own personal power, your ability to overcome your own limitations, and to create the life you truly desire. It is not a restriction on your freedom, but a path towards true freedom, freedom from your own self-sabotaging patterns. How will you reframe your view of self-discipline and recognize it as a powerful tool of self-creation? The process of building these habits will not be easy, and there will be days when you do not want to push yourself, when it will be far easier to give in to the resistance and abandon your practices. These are the moments that will truly test your commitment to self-overcoming. This is where you will have to dig deep and actively choose to continue despite the discomfort. It is not about never feeling the resistance, but about continuing on, even when you do. This is the true test. Can you push yourself, even when you don't want to? What will you do when you encounter those moments of resistance, and how will you choose to move forward? While building these internal habits is crucial, it is also necessary to be mindful of the external influences that impact your journey, and this requires carefully considering the people you spend your time with and the environments that you expose yourself to. Your relationships and surroundings have a profound influence on your growth, and you must begin to evaluate them critically and make conscious decisions about who and what you allow into your life. Who are the people that support your journey, and who are the people that are actively hindering it? The pressures of conformity, the desire to fit in, can often lead to unhealthy relationships that actively sabotage your journey of self-creation. This is the trap of trying to meet the expectations of others, abandoning your true self in the process. Many people will attempt to fit in with their peers by diminishing their own achievements or altering their personalities to be more palatable to the group. In doing so, they sacrifice their authenticity and their personal growth. The result is a shallow sense of belonging that comes at the expense of their true self. How will you begin to identify these unhealthy relationship patterns, and what steps will you take to distance yourself from those who are actively hindering your growth? To navigate this successfully, you must learn to create and maintain healthy boundaries, both with other people and with the world as a whole. This is not about isolating yourself, but about protecting your own well-being and creating space for your own growth. This requires learning to say no, to not overextend yourself to other people, and to make your own well-being a priority. This is something that many people struggle with. They often find it difficult to say no to others, especially those they care about. However, if you are always putting the needs of others ahead of your own, you will eventually become resentful. How can you begin to define your own boundaries? And how will you communicate them clearly and effectively to others? It is essential to actively seek out relationships that are supportive and empowering, people who will encourage you to grow and who will challenge you to reach your full potential. This is not about surrounding yourself with yes-men who will agree with everything you say, but rather finding people who will challenge you constructively and hold you accountable for your goals. A positive social circle can provide you with encouragement, support, and valuable feedback, all of which can be invaluable on the path of self-overcoming. How will you nurture these supportive relationships and seek out new connections that will empower your own personal growth? Moving away from negative relationships can be challenging, and it will often lead to backlash from the people you are distancing yourself from. This is to be expected. They will attempt to manipulate you with guilt or to make you feel bad about your decision. This is a common response when you threaten the established dynamic, but it is essential to understand that it is a reflection of their own fears and insecurities. It is not a reflection of your worth or the correctness of your path. You must be prepared for this negative feedback, and you must choose to stay the course, regardless of the emotional cost. How will you prepare yourself for the negative responses you might encounter, and how will you choose to stay true to your own path? As you bring all these elements together, the habit formation, the self-reflection, the challenging of your morality, and the navigation of the external world, you will see that they all work in tandem. All of this will start to converge into something powerful, the creation of your new self. The journey of self-overcoming is not about focusing on one aspect alone, but about integrating all of these elements into a cohesive whole. This is where true power lies, in the unified front you create, and how all of this works together in perfect synchronicity. What steps will you take to integrate these various aspects and to create a powerful vision for your life? This journey of self-overcoming is not a destination, but a process, a continuous evolution, a constant refinement of your own being. It is not about reaching a point of perfection, but about embracing the process of growth, learning, and change. The person you are today will not be the person you are tomorrow, and that is something to be celebrated. You must remain flexible, adaptable, and willing to change as you learn and grow. This is the path of constant self-improvement, which ultimately is a journey with no end. How will you maintain your commitment to continuous growth and embrace the inevitable changes that life will bring? As you continue down this path, you will begin to understand that your life is not something that happens to you, but something that you create. Your life is a testament to the power of the human spirit, the ability to overcome obstacles, and to create a life that is meaningful and fulfilling. The legacy you leave behind will not be determined by your material success, but by the impact you have on the world and by the way that you chose to live your life. In the end, you will leave a mark on this world. What will that mark be? The incredible freedom and empowerment that comes from this journey is not a fleeting moment of inspiration, but a fundamental shift in your understanding of your own capabilities. It is the understanding that you are the sole author of your life, and that you have the power to create the future that you desire. This is the ultimate reward, a life lived with intention, purpose, and complete self-mastery. In the next section, we will synthesize all of these key takeaways and offer you a clear path forward, a call to action that will allow you to begin your own journey of self-overcoming. Are you ready to experience the complete freedom that awaits you on the path of self-creation? The journey of self-overcoming is not merely an intellectual pursuit. It is a deeply personal transformation that requires active participation and a willingness to step outside of your comfort zone. To facilitate this, it is crucial to engage in daily practices that challenge your limitations and help you cultivate the necessary strength and resilience. These are not abstract concepts, but practical exercises that are specifically designed to help you grow into the person you are meant to become. These exercises should become a part of your life, like taking a shower or brushing your teeth. They are practices that must be engaged with to reach the level of self-mastery that we are striving towards. What specific practices can you start implementing in your life to actively engage in this process of self-overcoming? One of the most effective techniques for building mental and physical resilience is deliberate discomfort exposure. This involves intentionally placing yourself in situations that challenge your comfort level and forcing yourself to persevere even when you are struggling. This could be as simple as taking a cold shower or fasting for a day, or challenging yourself physically by engaging in intense training. These practices are designed to build your tolerance for discomfort and to teach you that you are capable of overcoming challenges that you might have previously avoided. It is in the moments of discomfort that we begin to understand the power we truly possess. How will you begin to incorporate the practice of deliberate discomfort into your daily routine? And how will you use this as a tool to build resilience and fortitude? Another essential tool for self-overcoming is rigorous self-analysis, which can be powerfully achieved through journaling. This involves setting aside time each day to reflect on your thoughts, feelings, and actions, and to honestly confront the areas of yourself that you might prefer to avoid. This is not a passive activity, but an active interrogation of yourself, a challenging of your own perceptions, and a constant questioning of your own limitations. This requires courage, it requires honesty, and it demands that you are willing to see yourself as you truly are, not how you wish to be. What are the core questions that you need to be asking yourself, and how will you use journaling as a tool for radical self-assessment? These journaling practices can be made even more effective by incorporating specific prompts designed to challenge your deeply held beliefs and assumptions. These prompts might include questions such as, what are the lies I tell myself? What are my greatest fears, and how do they control my actions? What are the areas where I am holding myself back? Am I truly living in accordance with my values? These questions are not meant to be easy. They are meant to push you to your limits and force you to confront the uncomfortable truths that you might have been avoiding. This consistent self-interrogation is the path towards true self-understanding, a clear vision of the person you are and the person you are striving to become. How will you use these challenging prompts to uncover your deepest truths and to actively engage with the discomfort of self-discovery? As you begin to implement these practices, you will inevitably encounter internal resistance. That is the ego attempting to pull you back into your comfort zone, preventing you from moving into the unknown. The ego will whisper doubts in your ear. It will try to convince you that it is not worth the effort. It will find reasons why you should give up and return to your old habits. This resistance is a natural part of the process, and it should not be seen as a sign of failure, but as an indication that you are moving in the right direction. The more resistance you feel, the more likely it is that you are pushing yourself into areas where real growth can occur. How will you learn to recognize these patterns of internal resistance, and how will you push through them to continue your journey towards self-overcoming? The ego is incredibly adept at using subtle forms of sabotage, such as procrastination, distractions, or sudden feelings of self-doubt. You might suddenly find yourself wanting to watch television, play a video game, or start cleaning your house when you know that you should be engaging in your daily practices. These are all clever ways that the ego tries to pull you away from the path of growth. Learning to recognize these patterns is key to overcoming them and to staying consistent with your daily practices. It is a constant battle, a never-ending push and pull between the desire for comfort and the desire for growth. What specific strategies can you use to overcome these moments of self-sabotage, and how will you create a system that will hold you accountable to your own goals? The key is to understand that this discomfort is not something to be avoided, but something to be embraced. It is in these moments of challenge that you grow. It is in these moments of adversity that you build the strength and resilience needed to overcome the challenges you face in your life. The human spirit is incredibly resilient. It is designed to overcome struggle, and it is through that struggle that it develops the fortitude it needs to move forward. You should not shy away from this challenge, but instead embrace it fully. What must you do to embrace the value of struggle and to transform your view of discomfort from something to be avoided into a crucial component of your self-overcoming? When you consistently engage with these practices and you learn to push through the internal resistance, you will begin to experience a significant increase in your sense of personal power and self-mastery. You will no longer feel like a victim of your own circumstances, but rather as the author of your own life. This is a profound shift in perspective, a move away from passive acceptance and towards active creation. You are no longer simply reacting to the world around you, but you are actively shaping your own reality. This is the power of the human will, and it is a power that is available to everyone who is willing to do the work required to achieve it. What actions will you take to cultivate this sense of personal power and begin living a life of your own design? The engagement with these practices is not a simple path, and there will be many days when you will want to give up, and there will be moments when you will want to throw in the towel. This is a normal part of the process, and it is something that everyone experiences. However, it is in these moments that you must dig deep and find the strength to persevere. It is in these moments that you begin to truly forge yourself, not as someone who quits at the first sign of difficulty, but as someone who stands strong in the face of adversity. Remember that discomfort is a sign that you are on the right path. It is an indication that you are challenging your limits and moving towards the authentic self that you are striving to become. What will you do to find the strength to persevere when you feel like giving up? And how will you reframe these moments of difficulty as opportunities for growth? These practices are essential. They are the foundation upon which you will begin to build a new life, but they are useless without a clear direction, a purpose that guides your efforts, and an understanding of who you are truly meant to become. This requires a clear vision of the life you want to create, and the strength of will to see that vision become a reality. This brings us to the concept of defining your will to power, an understanding of the authentic self you are striving to create, and not simply one that you have inherited from your peers or family. What is the true meaning of your will to power, and how can you begin to define it to create a life of purpose and meaning? The concept of the will to power is often misunderstood as a desire for dominance over others, as a lust for control, and a need to impose your will on the world. This is not the intention, and this is a gross oversimplification of the concept. Instead, the will to power should be understood as an internal drive towards self-mastery, a desire to achieve your unique potential and to create a life that is aligned with your deepest values. It is not about dominating others, but about conquering yourself and becoming the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. This is a path of self-transformation, not a path of coercion. What is your true potential, and what actions will you take to begin to realize it? This requires that you have a clear personal vision, a picture of the person you are striving to become, and the kind of life you wish to live. This vision must be based on your own values and your own desires, and not on what others think that you should do or on what society dictates as successful. It is a process of careful self-reflection, of examining your true motivations, and of setting goals that are meaningful to you, not just to others. This is a crucial step, and this is where many people begin to see that they have been living a lie, where they have been chasing goals that are not really their own. What is the true vision that you hold for your life, and how can you begin to bring it into reality? The pursuit of external validation, the need to be liked by others, the desire for acceptance, is one of the primary obstacles that prevent the development of your true personal vision. This often leads to the adoption of values that are not truly yours, and to the pursuit of goals that are not aligned with your true self. When you are constantly seeking approval from others, you are essentially giving your power away. You are allowing others to determine the value of your existence. This is a dangerous path that can lead to a life of dissatisfaction, as you are always trying to fit into a mold that was not created for you. How will you break free from this pattern of external validation and begin to value your own unique perspectives and desires? The creation of your personal vision will require a deep and rigorous process of self-reflection, a willingness to challenge the goals you might have inherited from others, and to actively seek out the ones that truly resonate with your authentic self. This means questioning why you want what you want, and if your motivations come from a place of fear or insecurity, or if they come from a place of strength and genuine desire. This is an ongoing process. It is not something that you will likely figure out in one day, but it is a process that you must engage in with courage and a commitment to self-honesty. How can you begin to actively identify your own unique gifts and talents, and how can you use this knowledge to create a more meaningful and purposeful life? You must shift your perspective, moving away from passively following others and towards actively shaping your own path. This requires that you take complete responsibility for your life, for your choices, and for the future that you are creating. Nobody else can do this work for you. Nobody can tell you what your vision is supposed to look like or how you should achieve it. It is entirely up to you to take control of your own life and to actively shape your own destiny. This is the true power of the human will, the ability to create our own realities and to become the authors of our own stories. How will you step into the role of self-author and begin to actively write your own narrative? Defining your will to power and creating your own personal vision is a process that will often lead you to go against the expectations of others. There will be people who will not understand your choices, who will try to convince you that you are making a mistake, and there will be moments when you might feel incredibly isolated. This is part of the challenge, and it is something that you must be prepared for. You cannot expect everyone to agree with your vision. You cannot expect everyone to understand your choices. You must be willing to stand on your own 2 feet and to forge your own unique path, regardless of what anyone else thinks. How will you prepare yourself for the inevitable criticism, and how will you learn to stand firm in the face of adversity? Now that you have begun to understand your will to power and how it relates to your vision, you must now begin to examine the moral code by which you will live your life. This is not a passive acceptance of the moral codes that have been handed down through tradition, but a deep interrogation and a reconstruction of your own value system. This requires that you build a unique framework that is based entirely on the authentic values you have discovered during this process. What moral compass will you choose to follow, and how will you craft your own ethical framework? This means actively rejecting any values that do not align with your authentic self, replacing them with those that are uniquely your own. This might mean going against long-held traditions, questioning religious dogmas, and challenging deeply ingrained societal norms. This is not an easy process, as you are often challenging the very foundations of your own upbringing and your entire worldview. However, it is a necessary step in the journey towards self-overcoming, a path towards true freedom of the self. What are the values that you must actively challenge, and how will you construct a moral code that is aligned with your own personal truths? The moral codes of society, often presented as objective truths, can often be tools of oppression, limiting self-expression and hindering authentic living. Throughout history, many injustices have been carried out in the name of morality. These acts were not isolated incidences. They were the result of blindly following codes without questioning their validity. This is a crucial point, that you must never blindly follow any moral code, but must always maintain a state of skepticism and a willingness to challenge the foundation of your own beliefs. This is the only path towards true freedom, the freedom to define your own values and to live your life in accordance with them. How will you learn to critically examine your existing beliefs, and how will you begin to build a moral code that is uniquely your own? Creating your own moral framework is not an act of chaos, or a validation to do whatever you feel like doing, but rather it is about aligning your actions with your deepest held values and living a life of integrity and self-honesty. This requires a constant self-interrogation, an ongoing evaluation of your choices, and a willingness to make adjustments when you stray from the path you have defined for yourself. This is not about doing whatever you want, but about doing what is right for you, based on your own unique moral compass. How will you construct your moral framework, and how will you live your life in accordance with those newly defined principles? This path of creating your own moral framework, while liberating, will often put you in direct conflict with the norms and expectations of those around you. You will often be misunderstood, and you will be confronted with the beliefs of those who think that your path is somehow wrong and that you should be living your life as they are. These situations can be incredibly difficult, and they can often lead to feelings of isolation and loneliness. This is where your understanding of self must be strong, and it will be essential that you continue to rely on your values to guide you forward. This path, while difficult, is the price of true freedom, the freedom to live authentically, and the freedom to define your own truth. How will you navigate these conflicts with others, and how will you hold strong to your values, even when you are challenged by those around you? As you start to bring all these different components of self-overcoming together, you will begin to understand the process and how all the pieces connect to create a powerful framework for living. All of the work you have been doing, from the daily exercises to defining your will to power, to creating your own unique moral code, must now be integrated into one unified approach. This is not about adding more things to your to-do list, but about unifying all of these different practices into a single cohesive strategy for living. This is the true power of self-overcoming, the ability to bring all the elements together into one unified vision of yourself. How will you begin to integrate these various aspects and create a life of meaning and authenticity? This journey of self-overcoming is not a static event. It is an ongoing process of evolution, a constant refinement of your being. It is not something that you simply accomplish and then forget about. You are not aiming to reach a point of perfection, but to embrace the constant process of growth, learning, and change, all while moving closer to your authentic self. The person you are today will not be the person you are tomorrow, and that is something that should be celebrated, not something to be feared. What must you do to remain flexible and adaptable on the path of self-overcoming, and how will you embrace the inevitable changes that life will bring? This transformation is not about following a prescribed path or checking boxes on a list. It is about continually reassessing your direction and making changes as you grow and learn. You must integrate all of these new ideas and practices into your daily life. This requires a constant process of self-reflection, an understanding that you must always be willing to adjust your path to meet the ever-changing demands of your inner world. The journey of self-overcoming is not a destination. It is a path that you will continue on for the rest of your life, so it is crucial to enjoy the ride and be kind to yourself. How will you continuously refine your approach and remain committed to constant growth and adaptation? This ongoing process of self-overcoming is not something that you should see as a burden, but rather as an opportunity to cultivate a life of intention and to embrace the incredible power that resides within you. This is not about simply surviving. It is about thriving, and it is a path that is available to everyone who is willing to embrace the discomfort and do the necessary work. The freedom and empowerment that comes from self-overcoming is one of the most rewarding human experiences. You are not a passive observer of your life. You are the author of your story, and you have the capacity to create whatever you desire, but that comes with a responsibility to do the required work. What steps will you take to create your masterpiece of a life, and will you choose to embrace your full potential? The next section will be dedicated to revealing the ultimate freedom that comes with this path and help to reinforce why this journey is a necessary one for all those that wish to live a life of their own choosing. and not one that is dictated by outside forces. Are you ready to explore the ultimate liberation that awaits you on the other side of this challenging, yet incredibly rewarding path? The path of self-overcoming, while deeply rewarding, is not without its challenges. It requires a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, to push beyond perceived limitations, and to embrace the inevitable pain that comes with growth. This is not about seeking out suffering for its own sake, but understanding that it is an intrinsic component of any meaningful transformation, an unavoidable aspect of human experience. How can we begin to reframe our understanding of pain, not as something to be avoided at all costs, but as a necessary catalyst for authentic self-discovery and personal evolution? Consider the stories of those who have overcome immense hardship, the countless individuals who have faced seemingly insurmountable obstacles and emerged stronger, more resilient, and more deeply connected to their true selves. Nelson Mandela's decades of imprisonment, Viktor Frankl's experience in Nazi concentration camps, these are not stories of simple survival. They are testaments to the human capacity for growth through suffering, and powerful evidence of the transformative potential that pain can hold when it is viewed through the right lens. What can these examples teach us about our own capacity to grow through challenging experiences, and how can we begin to embrace this perspective in our own lives? As you embark on this path of self-overcoming, you will inevitably encounter internal resistance, and your ego will desperately try to pull you back to the familiar comforts of your old routines. It will whisper doubts into your mind, and it will try to convince you that this journey is not worth the effort. The ego is designed to keep you safe, and will not want you to challenge your current reality, as this would require a level of vulnerability that it actively tries to avoid. This resistance often manifests as procrastination, fear of failure, or an overwhelming urge to return to old habits, and it can be incredibly difficult to overcome, especially when it is working on an unconscious level. For example, you might find yourself suddenly needing to reorganize your closet when you know that you should be engaging in a daily practice, or find yourself getting angry or defensive when your beliefs are challenged. These seemingly unrelated actions are your ego's attempt to protect you from the discomfort of growth. The more strongly your ego fights against this transformation, the more crucial it becomes for you to push through these feelings and embrace the discomfort as a sign that you are moving in the right direction. How will you learn to recognize these subtle patterns of resistance, and how will you overcome the ego's attempt to keep you safe from the growth that you so desperately seek? The key to navigating this internal resistance is to understand that discomfort is not your enemy, but is actually a sign that you are expanding your horizons. It is a clear indicator that you are pushing your boundaries and stepping into new territory where growth can occur, and a sign that you are moving outside of your predefined comfort zone. This shift in perspective is crucial, as it transforms pain from something to be avoided into a valuable ally on your journey, and a tool that can help you reach your goals. The next time you find yourself wanting to avoid something that makes you uncomfortable, instead of resisting that feeling, try to lean into it. See if you can observe what is happening inside your body, without judgment or a desire to change it. The next time you feel discomfort in your body, notice if you tense up and begin to resist the feeling, and if you do, experiment with taking a deep breath and see if you can allow the sensation to exist without any resistance. These simple practices can have a profound effect on your ability to change your relationship with discomfort and to use it as a guide rather than an obstacle. How can you shift your perspective on discomfort and transform it from a source of fear into a powerful tool for self-discovery and growth? By embracing pain and discomfort, you begin to develop a deep and authentic sense of resilience, an unshakable self-reliance that is not dependent on any outside validation. This is a process that forges you into the person you are meant to be, not the person that others want you to be. It is a journey of self-discovery and self-creation. It is in the moments of hardship and in the face of your deepest fears that you begin to discover your true potential, the strength and resolve that lies dormant within you. The challenges you face along the path are not designed to break you, but to reveal the depths of your spirit and to show you just how capable you are of overcoming adversity. This knowledge becomes a bedrock, a deep understanding of your own capacity that cannot be taken from you and will sustain you through the inevitable challenges that life will bring. This is not a path for the faint of heart. It is a rigorous journey of self-examination, but the rewards are well worth the effort, as you will create a foundation for authentic self-expression and a deeper connection to your own true nature. What must you do to embrace the journey, the challenges, and the discomfort that is a necessary component of any true transformation? The process of self-overcoming is not just about enduring the pain. It's also about understanding the lessons that it provides, using discomfort as a teacher, and allowing yourself to be transformed by the process. This brings us to the crucial idea of confronting your own limitations, not as weaknesses, but as opportunities for growth. How often do you try to hide your flaws from others, and how often do you deny your own deficiencies and present a false image of yourself to the world? It is through the acceptance of your flaws and your limitations that you find the true path to personal growth. So how can you begin to embrace these aspects that you actively try to hide? Confronting your limitations, both perceived and real, is essential to the self-overcoming process. Instead of viewing these limitations as weaknesses, you should start to see them as areas that offer incredible potential for transformation, seeing them as challenges to overcome. The ego, however, will often attempt to hide your limitations from view, and it will often manifest in a sense of false superiority, an unwillingness to acknowledge your own flaws. This denial is a powerful obstacle to growth, as it prevents you from seeing yourself as you truly are, and it keeps you trapped in a cycle of self-deception. Consider the story of the great basketball player Michael Jordan. He was not born with the incredible skill that he later showed to the world, but instead, he actively worked to turn his perceived limitations into strengths, dedicating an incredible amount of time to practicing the basics. His example demonstrates how a clear understanding of your limitations can serve as a starting point for achieving your true potential. How will you begin to see your own limitations as a necessary component for growth? And how will you begin to change your perspective on the weaknesses that you actively try to hide from view? This self-deception often masks itself with pride and an unwillingness to admit faults, which only perpetuates the cycle of stagnation. It's a common human tendency to avoid looking directly at your own shortcomings, and it is very easy to fall into the trap of pretending to be something that you are not. This false sense of self keeps you in a state of denial and limits your ability to learn and grow. Many successful people will often say that their greatest breakthroughs have come in those moments where they were forced to confront their limitations and had to adjust their course. This requires a willingness to be radically honest with yourself, to confront the difficult truths that you have been avoiding, and to admit that you are not perfect. This act of honest self-reflection can be painful. It requires a great deal of courage, but it is a necessary step on the path of self-discovery and essential for the journey of self-overcoming. What difficult truths about yourself have you been avoiding, and how can you begin to confront these head-on with radical honesty? By accepting your limitations and working with them rather than hiding from them, you can transform them into sources of incredible strength and avenues for profound growth. This is not just a matter of accepting your flaws, but also reframing your understanding of their value, seeing them not as liabilities, but as areas of untapped potential. For instance, someone who is naturally shy might choose to develop their communication skills, transforming a perceived weakness into a strength. This transformation occurs not through denial, but by actively embracing the challenge and working to integrate this aspect into the core of your being. When you understand that your limitations can actually be your greatest assets, you will begin to view the world with a new sense of possibility and excitement. How can you begin to actively reframe your understanding of your perceived weaknesses and transform them into a springboard for personal growth? As you begin to face your limitations with humility, you cultivate a deeper sense of compassion, and you develop a greater capacity for empathy. You begin to understand that everyone struggles, everyone has their own unique set of challenges, and everyone is trying their best to navigate their own path. This shift in perspective not only fuels your own growth, but it also allows you to connect with others on a deeper and more meaningful level. It allows you to see others with their imperfections and with their shortcomings, rather than viewing them from a place of judgment and disdain. This ability to see with compassion is a fundamental quality of an integrated self, and it is a crucial component in building authentic relationships. What role does humility play in your journey, and how can you use this quality to create a more authentic version of yourself? This journey of self-overcoming requires you to not only look inwards, but also to look at the world around you. Others will often act as mirrors, reflecting back to you aspects of your own shadow, revealing the traits you might not want to acknowledge in yourself. The qualities that you find most irritating in others, the habits that you actively try to avoid, might very well be the very parts of yourself that you are actively suppressing. How often have you judged someone else, only to realize that they were simply a reflection of some aspect of your own psyche? And how can you use this knowledge to begin to better understand your projections? The qualities that you find most distasteful in others are often the very things that you have not yet integrated within yourself. This is not always an easy realization, as it often requires you to face aspects of yourself that you might find deeply unpleasant, the parts that you have been actively trying to keep hidden. When you begin to understand this process, you will begin to view your interactions with others in a new light, not as annoyances to be avoided, but as opportunities for self-discovery and growth. The next time you find yourself criticizing someone else, or feeling an intense emotional reaction to their actions, take a moment to pause, to reflect inwards, and ask yourself what this interaction might reveal about the hidden aspects of yourself. What specific qualities do you dislike in others, and what might these traits reveal about the suppressed aspects of your own personality? This tendency to project your own faults onto others is often a defense mechanism, a way for you to avoid taking responsibility for your own shortcomings. It is much easier to blame others for your problems than it is to confront the root cause of your pain. For instance, you might find yourself complaining about how inconsiderate other people are, when in fact, it might be a projection of your own lack of consideration. It is in the moments where you blame others for your own misfortunes that you must begin to look inwards and ask yourself what aspect of your own behavior you are trying to avoid. This process of radical self-honesty, while painful, is essential for your own personal growth and the journey towards self-overcoming. How often do you blame others for your own mistakes, and how can you take ownership of these actions to move towards personal growth? By recognizing your own projections, you will begin to develop a deep and lasting sense of empathy for those around you. You begin to understand that everyone is struggling with their own internal battles, and everyone is carrying their own unique burdens. This understanding fosters a sense of compassion, and it allows you to see others as complex and layered individuals, rather than judging them based on your own limited perspective. When you are able to see the world through this lens of compassion, you will see the possibility for authentic connection and community, rather than viewing the world as a place of conflict and separation. How can you use your knowledge of projections to create a more compassionate world? And how can you build connections that are based on understanding rather than judgment? This process of self-discovery, of integrating your shadow, of accepting your limitations, and understanding your projections can be transformative. It can shift your entire understanding of self and your role in the world. But it is not a journey to take in solitude, for this path requires an active engagement with the world around you. You must see the world as a testing ground for your values, a constant challenge to your newly found beliefs, and an opportunity to put your will to power into action. How will you begin to engage with the world around you? And how will you start to apply all of these lessons that you have been learning to the way that you live your life? The world is not a passive stage on which your life unfolds. It is an arena, a battleground where your values and your will to power are constantly tested. You must engage actively, with conviction, and with an unwavering commitment to your own authentic expression, never falling into the trap of passive reaction. Instead of merely reacting to the world, you must become an active force of creation, shaping your environment with your values, and taking responsibility for all of the choices you make, and the impact they will have on the people around you. The way that you chose to engage with the world will ultimately define the kind of person you become. What actions will you take to engage with the world around you, and how will you begin to transform it into a more authentic and more fulfilling place? Living authentically, with conviction and courage, will often mean going against the tide and challenging the status quo. It might mean disagreeing with your family, or standing up against your friends, or confronting societal norms that you do not believe in, and this will often come with a risk of rejection and disapproval. However, this is the price of authenticity, the price you must pay to live a life that is truly your own, and that aligns with the values that you hold most dear. It requires courage, it requires self-belief, and it demands that you choose integrity over popularity and inner truth over societal validation. How will you embrace your courage, and how will you continue to stay true to your values when faced with adversity? By embracing this responsibility and acting with courage and conviction, you can transform your view of yourself, moving from the role of victim to the role of creator. You begin to see the power that resides within you, the capacity to shape not only your own life, but also the world around you. This understanding shifts your perspective from feeling like you are simply a product of circumstance to feeling like you are an active agent of change. This is the true power of self-overcoming, not the ability to simply adapt to your surroundings, but to actively shape the world in accordance with your own values, and to create a life that is both meaningful and purposeful. How will you embrace the power that is within you, and how will you begin to actively shape the world according to your own vision? Living a life of purpose, of meaning, of conviction, will inevitably bring you into conflict with others. It will challenge the status quo, and it will often demand that you stand alone in your beliefs. This path is not an easy one. It is a challenging journey that requires an incredible amount of fortitude. But by this point, you should have developed the tools and skills necessary to handle these situations. You are no longer someone who is easily swayed or easily intimidated. You are someone who stands strong in their convictions and uses their will to shape the world into a more meaningful and authentic place. This is not a path to be feared, but it is a path that must be embraced with open arms, for it is here that you begin to find your true freedom. What does true freedom mean to you, and how will you use this understanding to create a life that is not only authentic, but also meaningful? The next section will reveal the ultimate freedom that lies at the end of this journey, and will help to reinforce why all of this effort is not just important, but a necessary requirement for anyone who seeks to live a life of their own choosing. The core revelation at the heart of Nietzsche's brutal advice is that it is not, in fact, about cruelty or self-destruction, but rather a necessary and powerful act of self-overcoming. This process requires one to dismantle the false structures of the self that have been built through societal expectations and internalized limitations, and to forge a new identity based on a deeper understanding of one's own authentic nature. It is through this rigorous process of self-examination and challenge that one can begin to find a path to true liberation and begin to live a life of purpose and meaning. This is not a simple or easy journey. It requires courage, conviction, and a willingness to face the most uncomfortable truths about oneself. But it is ultimately a path that leads to the creation of a truly magnificent and powerful self. The very parts of you that you thought were real must be deconstructed, examined, and rebuilt in a way that is truer to the essence of who you are. This is the path to genuine self-creation and the ultimate freedom that Nietzsche so passionately advocated for. What does this revelation mean to you, and how does it change your understanding of the journey you are about to embark on? Throughout this journey, we have examined the various patterns that keep individuals locked in a state of dissatisfaction, such as the cage of societal norms, the sabotage of internal resistance, the distraction of false values, and the wall of self-deception. These patterns are not isolated incidents, but are deeply intertwined mechanisms that work in unison to keep one trapped in a cycle of stagnation and unhappiness. Society actively reinforces conformity, making it incredibly difficult to step outside of the accepted norms, while the internal resistance of the ego will actively work to keep you within your comfort zone. This is further complicated by the trap of false values that often puts external validation over internal authenticity, which inevitably leads to a sense of emptiness. The final layer of this trap is self-deception, a powerful mechanism that prevents one from seeing the truth about themselves and the world around them. By becoming aware of these interconnected patterns, you gain the power to start to dismantle them and begin to break free from the constraints that have been keeping you from your true potential. What action will you take to begin to dismantle these patterns, and how can you use this knowledge to reshape your approach to life? Understanding the concepts presented throughout this video, you can now begin to see that the pain, the limitations, and the projections you encounter are not obstacles to be avoided, but necessary tools for your own self-overcoming. They are signposts that guide you towards a deeper understanding of yourself and a greater appreciation for the world around you. The challenges that you face are not designed to break you, but to refine you and to help you forge a stronger and more resilient version of yourself. This new perspective allows you to see these challenges not as setbacks, but as opportunities for growth, and that these are the very things that you must learn to embrace if you wish to grow. Your limitations are not weaknesses, but are instead areas of untapped potential, and your projections reveal the hidden parts of your psyche that are longing to be integrated into your being. With this new understanding, you can actively begin to use these tools to create a more meaningful path forward, rather than allowing them to control you. How does this new perspective change your relationship with pain and suffering? And how can you use this newfound understanding to navigate life's challenges with strength and resolve? The ultimate shift in perspective that you must undergo is the movement from passively accepting what you are told to actively creating your own truth. True liberation does not come from avoiding the difficult paths, but from willingly walking them, from facing the uncomfortable realities, and from taking full responsibility for the kind of life that you wish to create. This is a conscious choice, one that requires you to abandon the safety of conformity and to embrace the unknown with courage and conviction. It demands that you become the author of your own life story, writing your narrative with intention and a deep commitment to your authentic expression. This is not about rebelling for the sake of rebellion, but about aligning your actions with your deepest values and your most authentic desires. This act of self-creation is a journey that demands constant vigilance, but the rewards are well worth the effort as you begin to create a life that is not only fulfilling, but also deeply meaningful. What will it mean to you to become the author of your own life, and how will this new perspective shape your future actions? This individual journey of self-overcoming is also inextricably linked to broader societal implications. For a society composed of individuals who are actively engaged in self-creation has the potential to bring about positive changes on a large scale. Every individual who embarks on this journey ripples out into the collective consciousness, inspiring others to question their own limitations and to strive for something greater. You must understand that one person is capable of creating incredible shifts in the world, and that each time someone chooses authenticity, they are not only healing themselves, but also contributing to the healing of society as a whole. This understanding provides a sense of purpose that extends far beyond your own personal experience and calls you to actively participate in the betterment of the world. How can you begin to see your personal growth as a way to contribute to the well-being of society? And how can you use your influence to inspire others to start their own journeys? The patterns that have been explored throughout this video, like societal conformity, internal resistance, and self-deception, are not just personal challenges, but systemic issues that must be actively addressed to foster a more authentic and conscious society. These patterns exist because they are reinforced by a system that is often designed to keep us in a state of dependence and conformity. It is through recognizing the systemic nature of these challenges that you begin to understand that your own personal growth has wider-reaching implications, and that you are not simply working for yourself, but for a collective cause. Understanding these patterns becomes vital for not only your personal growth, but for the collective betterment of society, and that by understanding these mechanisms, you can also begin to change them. How can understanding these systemic patterns change your approach to the world, and how will you become a force for conscious change? The long-term implications of embracing Nietzsche's brutal advice include increased levels of personal agency, freedom, and meaning. By actively engaging with the challenges, and by confronting the uncomfortable truths, you create an unshakable foundation of self-reliance and begin to walk down a path of true liberation. This path of self-overcoming inevitably leads to a deep sense of purpose, and it also allows for a more fulfilling existence. The failure to do so, however, inevitably leads to continued suffering, stagnation, and a life that is not of your own choosing. You are fully responsible for the choices you make, and for the life you wish to create, and this understanding empowers you to take control of your destiny and to forge a path that is aligned with your most authentic self. What kind of life will you create, and what choices will you make to step into your true power? Understanding Nietzsche's work is not just an intellectual exercise, but is instead a gateway to profound personal transformation. It offers a path towards a more authentic and fulfilling existence, one that is rooted in self-awareness and self-responsibility. The principles explored throughout this video can allow for a radical shift in your perspective, and it empowers you to take control of your life and create a life of purpose and meaning. This is not simply a matter of understanding the theory, but it is an active call to implementation, a journey that requires conscious effort and a willingness to grow. It is a path that demands a rigorous commitment to self-examination and an unyielding pursuit of authenticity. What steps will you take to integrate these principles into your daily life, and how will you begin to put these ideas into practice? The core threads of this video, the will to power, self-overcoming, the shadow, and authentic action, are not isolated ideas, but interconnected aspects of a unified system for personal growth. The will to power is the driving force behind your actions, the desire for self-expression and self-creation, while self-overcoming is the process through which you refine your will and refine yourself. The shadow represents the aspects of your psyche that you must integrate, and authentic action is the means by which you put your values into practice in the world. These elements work together in a beautiful dance, each one supporting and enhancing the others, and are all necessary if one wishes to create true and lasting change. This understanding allows you to view your life as a cohesive whole, where all the challenges and opportunities work together to shape your ultimate destiny. How will you embrace the interconnected nature of these principles, and how will you begin to live in accordance with them? The patterns of discomfort, self-reflection, and intentional action create a powerful tool for creating a more meaningful and authentic life. Discomfort pushes you outside of your comfort zone, forcing you to confront your limitations and to expand your horizons, while self-reflection allows you to process your experiences and to learn from your mistakes. Intentional action is then where you put what you have learned into practice, shaping your life with purpose and meaning. Together, these practices create a framework for continuous self-improvement, a never-ending cycle of growth and transformation. This cycle is not something that only needs to be done once, but should be engaged with on a daily basis, as a continuous practice to refine yourself. How will you use these patterns to create a structure for continuous growth and development? And how will you remain committed to this daily practice? We began this video with a question about whether it is possible to create an authentic life in a world that is constantly applying external pressures. And the answer is a resounding yes. Without a doubt it is possible, but it requires continuous hard work, commitment, and a willingness to embrace the difficult paths. You have the power to create a life that is true to your own unique expression, but it demands a relentless pursuit of authenticity and a willingness to face the unknown. The power to change your life has been within you all along, and it is now time for you to start to use it, to start to shape your world according to your vision. This journey is not always easy, but the rewards of living a life of purpose and meaning are well worth the effort. What is your next step, and how will you start to use your own power to change your world? The journey of self-overcoming is not an easy one, but the rewards are profound and long-lasting. It is not a journey to be feared, but one to be embraced with courage and determination, and it is a path that leads to a deeper sense of purpose, fulfillment, and authentic living. Embracing the brutal path, as challenging as it might seem, is the only path towards true freedom, a freedom that can only be found by facing your deepest fears and fully embracing your own humanity. This is the ultimate freedom, the freedom to be yourself, the freedom to live your life on your own terms, and it is the ultimate prize that waits at the end of this journey. What will you do now that you know the true cost of freedom, and how will you begin to actively create a life that is truly your own? Now that you understand the theory, the next question that you must start to consider is how will you begin to implement the practical steps that are required to start this journey? What specific actions will you take to confront your limitations, to integrate your shadow, and to live with more intention? Another question that you must begin to think about is what kind of impact will you choose to have on the world around you? How will you use your newfound freedom to shape the world into a more meaningful and authentic place? These questions are not intended to be answered today, but are meant to serve as a starting point for further reflection. This is only the beginning of your journey, a step forward into a life of purpose and meaning, but one that is only possible if you continue to commit to personal growth. The journey of self-discovery and self-overcoming is not a destination, but a continuous process of growth and evolution. There will always be new challenges to face, new areas to explore, and new layers of the self to uncover, and you must understand that this is a journey without a final destination. This is an invitation to embrace the ever-evolving nature of your being, to stay curious, and to remain committed to the ongoing process of self-creation. Now that you have taken your first steps, it is crucial that you remain open to the possibility of change as you continue down this path. What will your next step be in this ever-evolving process of self-creation, and how can you use this understanding to continue to grow? For continued engagement with this topic, I suggest you begin by joining online communities where you can share your insights and experiences with others on a similar path. Starting a daily journaling practice is also a valuable tool for reflecting on your thoughts and feelings, allowing you to track your progress and to understand the ways you have grown. Another powerful step is to further study Nietzsche's works, as well as the work of other related philosophers. These are all incredibly valuable steps that will help to reinforce the lessons that you have been learning and to further your own personal growth. You are not alone on this journey. There is a community that supports you and resources that can help you along the way. You simply need to take that first step. What specific actions will you take to continue your engagement, and how will you remain committed to this ongoing path of growth? The time has come to start your own journey of self-overcoming, to start to embrace the brutal advice that Nietzsche has so powerfully offered, and to begin the creation of a life that is truly your own. Remember that this is not a journey that you must take alone, and that there is a community of individuals who are also on this path. Know that more videos will follow, and that this is just the beginning of the journey, and it is now your responsibility to take the first step. It is now time to take all that you have learned, to integrate these ideas into your life, and to become the author of your own story. What will be your first step on this path, and how will you embrace the journey of self-creation?